he stopped. Mid-inspection, pulled off his uniform, because her tattoo matched the one they buried with his team. The faded black serpent curled around the bullet on Ryland Cade's forearm had been the punchline to more jokes than she could count. At Fort Ravenhall, Arizona, new recruits called it a scratch and ink special. Some even bet it was done in a gas station bathroom. But none of them had seen what happened when someone who knew better laid eyes on it. Colonel Mason Riker had, and the moment he did, during what was supposed to be a routine inspection, he went pale, not confused, not amused, but stunned. Then, without a word, he pulled off his uniform, not just the jacket, the whole damn top layer, like it was suffocating him, and beneath it the exact same mark. "She's not logistics," he'd whispered. "She's Black Viper 1. 12 hours earlier. The desert sun was already bleeding into the steel of the motor pool. Ryland Cade moved like she was built for heat grease-stained forearms, hair tied tight, wrench moving with surgical rhythm inside the open belly of a stubborn Falcon Series transport. At 0630 sharp, she'd clocked in, as always, no chatter, no delay, no mistakes. She preferred machines. They didn't ask questions. The other mechanics just knew her as quiet but sharp. A ghost who made busted engines hum again. Some said she could diagnose faults just by listening, as if she'd trained with the vehicles. Not on them. They didn't know how close to the truth that actually was. A grunt's voice broke the rhythm. "Nice ink," he said, leaning too close. Private Sean Drix. New to the base, new to boundaries. That a bad tattoo, or a worse decision, Ryland didn't flinch. Didn't look up. "It's functional," she said flatly, tightening a bolt with a firm click. "Oh yeah," Drix grinned. "What does it do?" "Summon the ghost of your ex-Snickers," rippled from the group of fresh boots behind him. It was always the same, a tattoo that looked too sharp to be pretty, too faded to be fake, and too deliberate to be meaningless. They laughed because they didn't recognize it. But Master Sergeant Dale Connors did. He was watching from across the lot, clipboard in hand, but his attention had locked on Ryland's stance. The way she moved, the way her eyes never stopped scanning. Too controlled, too aware, like someone who didn't just fix things, but once broke them under orders. "Private Drix," Connors called out, voice slicing through the noise. "You want to keep those teeth. Stop commenting on things above your clearance level." The laughter died instantly. Ryland didn't say thank you, but her eyes flicked toward Connors, just long enough to register something. Recognition. And maybe for the first time in months, warning Colonel Mason Riker moved through Fort Ravenhall's motor pool like a man wired for structure square boots. Square jaw, and a gaze sharp enough to cut through casing. He wasn't supposed to stop, but he did. Ryland Cade was on her back beneath a downed recon striker, wrench steady. Sleeves rolled. Sweat caught the Arizona light, and so did the mark on her skin. Riker stopped mid-step. The world didn't. But he did. Because what he saw wasn't just ink, it was a cipher. A Black Viper coiled tight around a .50 caliber round, faded, surgical, and seared into memory from missions no one spoke of, missions erased. His voice dropped. "Sergeant Connors, sir, that mechanic, Cade, Tier 2, smart, quiet, hell with an engine." Riker's eyes never left her forearm. "Cade," he said low, firm. The wrench stopped. She slid out from beneath the vehicle with a precision too clean for greasework, stood, faced him, not fully. Just enough for the tattoo to catch the sun and for their eyes to meet. Recognition cracked the air like suppressed thunder. Riker stepped forward. He didn't speak, didn't ask. He reached for his uniform and began unbuttoning. 1, 2, gone. Not just his jacket, everything. Shirt, undershirt, until bare skin met dry wind. Gasps echoed, because there it was, same coiled Viper, same placement, same round, and beneath it, a faint scar, the cost of surviving what no one else had. Riker's voice lowered. "She's not logistics," he said. That's Black Viper 1. His hand hovered near the tattoo like someone touching a memory too alive. Only 5 of us walked out. Beat. Only 1 stayed buried. The words didn't shout. They sank. Connors blinked. The room silent. Even the hydraulics seemed to hold their breath. Riker pulled his uniform back on with deliberate weight. Every button like a seal being broken. Then, to Connors, I need a word with her. Alone. Connors nodded slowly. Back to work. All of you. And what you saw? You didn't. Tools clattered, boots shifted, but nothing returned to normal. Rylan hadn't moved. Not really. Just stood in the shadow of something that had just been named again. Riker leaned in. Ops Chamber 7 Alpha. He murmured, 20 minutes. Come alone. Then he turned and walked like a ghost who'd just seen another. The walls of Ops Chamber 7A hadn't heard her name in years. Rylan Cade stepped in slow, grease still under her nails. Heart ticking like a detonator. Colonel Mason Riker stood at the far end, staring at a mission map stained with forgotten coordinates. He didn't turn. I saw your file burned. He said, I watched them fold mine into a casualty list. Rylan replied, they even held a moment of silence. That made him turn. There was disbelief in his eyes, but more than that, guilt. Like he'd buried something still breathing. She walked closer, and he laid it flat on the table, a manila folder marked with a black seal. Inside 6 blurred photos. Only one was clear, hers. They told us you went down with the second bird at Black Hollow Ridge. Riker said, nothing recovered. There wasn't much left, she said evenly. But someone pulled me from the wreckage. No name, no questions. I woke up 3 weeks later with a new ID and a discharge code no one can trace. His fist clenched the edge of the table. They didn't kill you, he said darkly. They caged you. Rylan nodded once. And you stayed quiet. Riker asked. I was under non-recall classification, buried under maintenance protocol. I fix broken things now quietly. Riker looked like he wanted to punch through the wall. Instead, he slid a tablet toward her. A paused drone image. Last month, a biometric ping came through a dead zone near the Tharwind Expanse. Confirmed match Sergeant Willow Nash, 99.2%. She was on your team. Rylan froze. That's impossible. Willow died in the blast. We thought you did too. Silence thickened. Riker sat down slowly, like gravity just got heavier. They're not hunting ghosts, he said. They're hunting leverage. Someone's sweeping files tied to Phantom Unit 11 psych evals, debriefs, even after action scans that were supposed to be redacted forever. Who, Rylan asked. We don't know, but they've accessed clearance layers higher than mine. She looked down at the tablet, the paused image of a woman with half her face in shadow but familiar. Then we stop pretending they're shadows. She said, we draw them out. Riker nodded. That means making yourself visible again. I already am, Rylan said, pulling back her sleeve to reveal the ink still raw, still healing. He exhaled slowly. They're going to come fast. You ready for that? She didn't answer, because the part of her that wasn't ready wasn't alive anymore. She picked up the folder. Black Viper 1 didn't knock. She returned. The cafeteria was unusually quiet for lunchtime, but Rylan Cade wasn't listening to chatter or silverware. She was watching reflections. A stainless tray stand by the far wall, a convex mirror near the serving line, a shimmer of movement in the glass panel above the soda dispenser. Third time confirmed it. Same man. Civilian clothes, but posture too squared, gaze too deliberate. He stirred his coffee without ever tasting it. She didn't flinch, but she didn't blink. Either. Behind her, Lieutenant Marin knew, jumpy, and wearing his comms console like a sidearm had just risen from his table, eyes narrowing at Rylan's direction. He hadn't seen the full tattoo, but he'd seen enough. She didn't look at him. But Master Sergeant Connors, passing with a tray, "Did. Sit down, Lieutenant," he said coolly. "You didn't see what you think you saw." Marin hesitated, then obeyed. Rylan kept eating, slowly, normally, but in her head. The checklist unspooled with surgical calm. 2 exits, 1 behind her, 1 near the trash bins. Window glare too thick for escape. Closest weapon tray edge sharp enough. Chairs too wide for shields. Forks, useless. No solid cover. She adjusted her spoon just enough to catch the stranger's reflection again. He had a comms earpiece, tapped it twice. Didn't follow her with his eyes, but his shoulders shifted as she moved. That wasn't curiosity. That was protocol. She stood up, dumped her tray, walked out, didn't check behind her, didn't need to. In the window outside. She caught it, a hand lifted, a phone call placed. Surveillance teams didn't trail their targets. They boxed them in. By the time she reached her workstation in the motor pool, she'd mapped 4 escape routes, 2 fallback spots, and memorized 5 unfamiliar faces on base. Waiting by Bay 12 was Connor's, hands behind his back, expression carved from tension. "Colonel Riker, now," he said quietly. "Same cover as before, maintenance protocol review." She nodded once. That was code. The walk to Ops Chamber 7A felt longer than it should have. Not in distance and pressure. Every hallway felt rigged. Every door, like a fuse. Inside, Riker didn't greet her. Just pointed to the chair and slid a sealed envelope across the table. Intel came in 2 hours ago. Someone's compiled full dossiers on Phantom Unit 11 survivors' movements, aliases, embedded covers. A pause. "Yours is top of the list." Rylan didn't react, not outwardly, but her pupils narrowed. Riker tapped the envelope. Echo Mark Protocol, not a summons. "A key, you decide if it turns." She stared at the seal. Red wax, no insignia, just a pressed ring mark, the kind issued under Directive Emberfall. Last time she saw one, 3 names never made it home. "Who's behind it?" she asked. "Unknown." Riker said, "Could be foreign black ops, could be ours, could be someone who used to sign your missions." Silence settled. Not the uncertain kind, the type that precedes detonation. Rylan didn't feel fear. She felt clarity, because surveillance didn't scare her. Silence did. She reached for the envelope, and as her fingers closed around it, the woman they mocked in the motor pool was already mapping 6 continents. Rylan Cade had spent 2 years pretending the war was over, wrench in hand, oil-stained sleeves, small talk about spark plugs and engine mounts, a role she wore like borrowed skin. But beneath that skin, something old had been stirring, and now it had fully awakened. Colonel Mason Riker slid the sealed folder across the table inside Ops Chamber 7A. The lighting was low, but the weight of what he handed her was blinding. "Authorization's in," he said quietly. "Phantom Unit 11 is officially back, for the duration of Emberfall." He didn't smile, neither did she, because this wasn't a victory. It was a warning. Rylan flipped the folder open. Inside code names, blacklisted targets, asset maps spanning 6 continents. At the bottom, a single call sign highlighted in red. Black Viper 1. Active status reinstated. Her fingers hovered over the ink. That name wasn't a title. It was a scar that had learned how to bleed quietly. Riker's voice lowered. "Your cover is secured. Patterson thinks you're off base, doing maintenance evaluations for top clearance projects. Drix has been reassigned, and Connors, he knows enough to stay quiet." He handed her a small tin case, inside a sterile cloth, a fresh needle, and the original ink formulation. Her ink. She walked to the far wall where the light hit better, pulled up her sleeve. There it was, the fated serpent, wrapped around the bullet, dulled by time but never erased. Until now. She cleaned the skin slowly. The oil came off easy, the dried blood from weeks ago, a little harder, but the wound beneath that was still healing. With a steady breath, she dipped the needle. The first stroke reopened old lines, sharp, intentional. The serpent coiled tighter now. The bullet glinted with new ink. It wasn't camouflage anymore. It was declaration. The door opened. Riker didn't speak, just watched. "You know what happens if they trace you," he said eventually. "Your name's still redacted in half the intel files we just decrypted." Ryland didn't look up. That's the point. She wiped the blood from the edge of the coil. The ink swirled into the cloth, black and red. Truth and consequence indistinguishable now. "When this is over," Riker said, "do you want out again?" Ryland paused. Her hand closed the tin. "No, I want others to have the out I never got." She pulled the sleeve down. The new ink bled slightly through the fabric, warm and real. Then she said it, not loud, but final. Black Viper 1 was never a mark. It was a warning. And now, it's awake.